I've worked with sales teams and supported them for over 20 years. And one of the things that I think is foundational to sales is the desire to be able to speak directly to the customer. The hardest thing for a salesperson or a sales team to duplicate is a phone call, is time in front of the customer, because you're always wanting to learn, you're always wanting to build that trust, and really it's that visibility that makes that possible. I think podcasts provide the best way to really duplicate that and let you be in more than one place at once. Let's start with objection handling. One way that podcasts can handle objections is if you do episodes related to specific objections. It could be a 3 or 4 minute episode where you're describing it and then describing the solution. Working with enterprise level companies, I would do monthly or every other month sales. We call them sales councils. That's where me and marketing would sit down with some sales leaders and say, hey, what's going on in the marketplace? What do you see on the boots on the ground? What are your customers experiencing? I would learn a ton from the salespeople. And so your sales team easily could rattle off 10 objections your customers have today. In fact, I'm sure there's 5 that are most prominent, but you could probably do 10 or 20. And so you can address those with a short podcast episode. It's not an interview. It's an individual solo, something like this, where you're having that conversation and sharing. It doesn't have to be long, 3 or 4 minutes, anything like that, whatever it takes to adequately answer those questions. Another thing that you can do is think about your frequently asked questions. These are not necessarily objections. These are questions that your customers have in general with your service or with your product. These are things that maybe they don't want to look on the website. Maybe it's not clear on your website. Just want a simple answer. Does your service do X? This is a way you can address one question, maybe multiple questions together in a single episode. Call it that. Frequently asked questions. A third area, and this could be a subset of your FAQ, but this is more of the product integration information. So I've worked in fintech, I've worked in SaaS, I worked in tech, and the bigger the company, the more integration questions you have. How do the APIs work? What does this interconnect with well? Can I connect with this complementary service? All of those, they wear on you after a while when that's the same email, the same response that you're sending them. So go through and talk through those integrations in an episode and share that information. And it can really be a good way to talk through how those services work well together. Because if you work for a SaaS company, if you work for a fintech company, your services work better with some companies than with others, right? There is no universal, ubiquitous kind of, we work great with everybody. However, you do have your sweet spot. And so that's an opportunity to really dive in on that. Product integration information. And a fourth, sort of what you can cover with some podcasts, really are some general industry best practices. This is, what are you seeing in the marketplace? Obviously, your customers looking around, they're seeing what's in the marketplace, but this is an opportunity, especially to provide some timely information for them. Hey, I'm seeing this in the marketplace. Here's what's going on. Here's some changes I've seen in the last 3 months. Would love to get your feedback. What have you been seeing? This can open up a dialogue with them. And in terms of that back and forth communication, which, again, if you're not on the phone, if you're not talking with them, it's easy to miss. So those are some what's of what you can do a podcast on. How to use them, man, and that's the starting point. You can use them in a lot of different ways. How to use them, honestly, the best way is create some playlists. Like if a customer reaches out to you, having, like you would with a one-pager or some other type of resource, whether it's a PDF or a web page or a link, something like that, this gives you an opportunity to send them something that's more personalized with a human voice, and you can send it directly to them. But with a playlist or even with a grouping of episodes by topic. Second, include them as part of your normal communication through your CRM, through Salesforce, whether it's with your normal funnel, whether it's with onboarding, these can be integrated as well. You're not having to create a whole new system. Instead, you simply work with the system you have and make it part of them. Another way to use this is to create articles, to create blog posts. This is in working in conjunction with marketing and be able to attach that audio or that video, embed that on a blog page so that people can either listen or watch, or they can read along with it. And another very similar way is emails, like being able to create emails with the audio attached where they can, almost like a newsletter format, attach the audio at the top, include the text in the body of the email where they can either read or listen to it. And even better, can be a training tool for your sales team. If you're dealing with objection handling, if you're dealing with frequently asked questions, you're dealing with integrations, especially with new sales team members, when you're trying to get them up to speed, even with ongoing training and education, it's a way to equip them with information. Honestly, this works great with marketing, with your product teams, with customer service too, because one of the big gaps between sales and marketing and sales and product is the information that the sales team has, because you are in front of the customer every day, week in, week out. And so hearing these objections that you're experiencing, that is incredibly valuable to your marketing team so that they can position the product better, so that they can create content that fits that market better. Same with your customer service team. You probably work hand in hand with them with implementation. They have a list of their questions that they are often asked, and making sure that there is this integration with them of information. Same with your product team. If your product team is talking with the customers, they are going to understand some of these things already. However, it's one thing to be talking with customers from a product standpoint. It's another really when you're dealing in terms of sales standpoint. That information transfer with a product team is huge. And I think it is something that is often overlooked. You don't have to set up a meeting. You don't have to draft an email. It's simply being able to share some information that they can listen to when it's convenient for them. Now, I'm guessing the question of privacy and protecting company information, that may be bouncing through your mind right now. Like that's great, Eric. However, I don't want my competitors knowing this information. It's like, I don't put pricing on my website. I always want them to talk with us because it's customized. There are matrices that we have to work through with pricing. It depends on the customer situation. I definitely don't want these things being out in the wild for anybody to read, to listen to watch. I totally get that and respect that. And that is one of the challenges. However, I do have a solution. You can create private podcast links. What a private podcast is, like if you go out to Apple, you go out to Spotify, you go out to YouTube, it never hits their networks. In fact, it's accessible through a specific link that you give to the user. This means nobody's going to accidentally stumble across it. Your competitors can't get into that information. You share that with a specific group. And what's really interesting with this is, depending on what platform you go through, you can see and give permissions to individuals. So you can see who has listened to these episodes. That gives you as a sales team an opportunity to then follow up and say, hey, I know I sent you those episodes. What did you think? Did you have any questions? That's the biggest thing. It gives you control over your own content and your own company information. So then that begs the question, who can create these? As a sales team, a lot of this usually falls on marketing's plate. And the challenge of working together and the need and the benefit of sales and marketing to work together. These are things that your sales team can take on themselves. For your budgeting purposes, this is something that you can create and handle on your own, working in conjunction with marketing to let them know what's going on. Being able to share information with them is incredibly helpful so that they can begin thinking through how to integrate that overall. But this is something as a sales team you can create on your own. This is information you can share with marketing. You can give them the transcripts. You can give them the audio. You can give them the video. And this is something that you can take ownership of, because that's the hardest part from what I've seen with 20 years working with sales teams, is the process to create things can get in the way. If you're on the phone with a customer, if you're meeting with a customer, you need something now where processes, I mean, you have these historical processes that may not be what the company needs today. It's no fault of sales, it's no fault of marketing. It's a process in the middle that's causing the friction, it's causing the problem. And so you might need something immediately. It may take 2 or 3 months to get it. It creates incredible stress. So these are things that sales can take ownership of and be able to share directly with customers and put a part of your CRM. Ultimately, the goal is to save you time and help you as a sales team, be able to convert customers quicker. Because here's the beauty of podcasts. You build trust a whole lot easier than through the written word. I listen to podcasts and I know these people, even though I've never met them. The level of trust after a few episodes, the level of trust I have with the host, the people on the recording, is enormous, much more so than with a written word. It puts you farther down that sales funnel. After several episodes, if a customer can listen to how you've handled objections, some frequently asked questions, you're way farther down that trust building cycle than on your first call. I had a conversation with some friends last year at work, and somebody brought up this dating app, and one of the people there was using it, and we got to talking about it. It was fascinating because you share information. So before you ever meet the person, they know about you, they see your picture, they get various details. It's not like you're walking into a blind date. You're not walking in cold. You are walking in like 3 or 4 dates down the road the very first time you meet. And I think that is so much of what podcasting can do for your sales team. If a customer reaches out with an initial inquiry, you're able to reply back, add a playlist, add a handful of episodes that you think would fit them and help them most. They can immediately start listening to them, and that trust starts building. And if you are dealing with executives, this is even more important. Some of the biggest podcast listeners are executives. Why? Because their time is so short. Their time is so restricted. So you can only have so much time during the day in front of a screen. However, it's easy to listen to a podcast. You can listen to however many episodes on the way to and from work, on the way to and from errands, while you're working out, while you're walking, while you're doing whatever. You can listen to easily 30 minutes and an hour of episodes. So you are in their ear, you are in their head, you are speaking directly to them, and you're doing that on their time. This is not restricted to 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. They're able to listen to it whatever time zone they're in, whatever part of the world they're in, on the weekend, at night. You are able to build this trust with them all outside your normal working hours. So that was a lot of information, but what I want you to really own and understand is podcasts for your sales team can open up wonderful opportunities. It can save you time in terms of customer contacts, in terms of information you're trying to share with them. It can help close deals faster because you are accelerating the trust factor. If you have questions about this, I'm happy to answer them.